Hello to everyone joining. Well, hello everyone and welcome. I am Diane Fleeser, an April board member and moderator of the session today. Thank you so much for joining us for Rural Resource Mapping, a demonstration of mapping community resources. I want to mention just a few housekeeping items before we get started. I know you all are pros by day 5 of the conference, but first, when you scroll over the screen, a menu bar pops up. Depending on what device you are on, you can find that menu bar at the top or bottom of the screen. That is where you will find the closed captioning for today's session. You can view the captioning by selecting the CC tab on the menu bar. For sign language interpreting, you can find the interpreter on the screen with the name Monica. If you are only able to see the speaker, make sure you are in gallery view so you can also see the interpreter and the presentation at the same time. You can find the option to change the view at the top of your screen under a tab for View. If you have any technical issues, please use the chat feature. You can find the word bubble in that same menu bar. Once that is selected, that will allow you to follow along with the chat or add in your comments. If you would like to turn the chat feature off, if you are using a screen reader, you can do that by pressing Alt and H. To ask a question or make a comment, you can also select the hand option on the menu bar, and that allows us to know you have a question. For those of you on the phone today or using keystrokes, we ask that you press *9 or Alt-Y on your keypad to raise your hand. We will then let you know when you can unmute. You can also select the unmute option or Alt-A if using keystrokes. Remember, if you join into the conversation today, which we're hoping you will, please keep all background noise down as much as possible. And the last reminder, April and our conference is a safe and inclusive space for marginalized communities. We ask that everyone present in today's session treat each other with respect and that you enter this and every session with good intentions. This includes respecting names, pronouns, and other personal identifiers and avoiding the use of harmful or derogatory language. We'll now turn it over to Lily and Jenna for today's presentation.
Hi, thank you, Diane. Hi, everyone. I'm gonna bring the slide up and start sharing my screen. So give me 1 minute. Oh, no. All right. Hi and welcome, and kudos to all of you for making it here for the last session of this conference. It's been really great. My name is Lily Greiman. I am a project director with the Research and Training Center on Disability in Rural Communities. I'm a white woman in my 30s wearing glasses with long brown hair and a rust-colored cardigan. And my colleague Jenna and I are going to be presenting today on rural resource mapping, a demonstration of mapping community resources. Before I turn it over to Jenna to get us started, I do want to refer everyone to our page on the conference website, where there are some materials that you can download, a copy of this PowerPoint, as well as some supplementary materials that will help you if you want to participate and go along with us as we do the tutorial later on. It's totally optional. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but they are all there. And I want to also note that this session is being recorded. And so the tutorial will be available later if you want to just watch us go through it today, and then the tutorial and the materials, so that you can come back and try it again for yourself a little bit later. And also that will always be available. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to introduce herself and get us started.
Thanks, Lily. So my name is Jenna Masenchi. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a graduate research assistant at the Research and Training Center on Disability in Rural Communities. And so today we will be presenting on a rural resourcing mapping project like Lily mentioned. And I'm going to go ahead and set us up for what we can expect in this workshop. Next slide, please. I should also mention that I am a white woman in her 20s and I have long brown hair. So in this workshop, we are going to review a couple of things. First, provide an overview of resource mapping and define what that means, and the project that the RTC Rural is engaged with working in different centers of independent living on. So we're going to go through that. Then we will discuss different types of community living resources. Then we will discuss how to identify resources in your community in case you want to follow along and do this with us. Then we're going to demonstrate how to build the community resource mapping tool so that you can do it on your own. And then we're also going to provide information on how to get involved in this project if you want to partner with us and do it for your own community. Next slide, please. So what is resource mapping? Resource mapping is a strategy that communities can use, any community, to build local partnerships, plan activities, and promote shared values for the community. A resource map is just one tool that can be used to engage local stakeholders in activities to identify services and supports that are available in the community for people with disabilities. Next slide, please. You might be asking yourself, why use a resource mapping tool as one of those activity options? Well, a map can help to better understand the communities that you might serve. It can also be used to help expand community connections. It can be used to connect consumers to local resources that are available in their community. It can be used to communicate to different funders about the resources and connections that are available in the community. And it can provide timely support if, unfortunately, a disaster might strike and the community needs to bond together to help. Next slide, please. So next, we're going to define what community living resources are. A community living resource is anything that can be used to improve quality of community life for individuals with disabilities. So this could be an organization, a community service, a place, a person, or even a group of people, and even a local business. And as I list these off, you might be thinking of even more that are available in your community. And I encourage you to write that down. If you do want to make a map, you can include those as well. Next slide, please. Some of the community living needs that we have identified are independent living skills training, housing, which includes both affordable and accessible housing, home modification and repair, accessible healthcare, home healthcare, personal assistance services, transportation options, employment opportunities, food security, peer support, mental health care, opportunities for community engagement, and others. And again, I invite you to list off any that might be really pertinent in your own community. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to turn it over to Lily for the fun, exciting part of mapping. And you If you have a Google account, feel free to start mapping alongside with Lily as we go through this step by step. And if not, if you don't have a Google account set up or would like to wait, you can also, like Lily mentioned, go to the website and download all the materials at the April conference website. So I'm going to turn over to Lily to get started.
Thank you, Jenna. And thank you again to everyone who's here. I want to do a little disclaimer that this process of doing a live tutorial is a little new for me. So we're kind of all exploring this together. Again, I really appreciate Jenna. I really appreciate you mentioning the Google account. If you do want to go along with us today, that is one requirement that you will need to have, as well as some of the materials that are on the website. And I may be able to share those right here on my shared screen. So let me know, if you cannot see my screen for some reason, or make a comment in the chat. Also, please let me know in the chat if I am going too quickly. I have a tendency sometimes to speak and rush through things, so I work hard to not do that. And someone, if you put it in the chat, Jenna or Diane or someone will holler at me. So I want to just draw your attention really quick to the conference webpage. And so in the materials for this session, you will see a bunch of materials. What I'm going to go over right now is what the step-by-step guide that is in this community living resource mapping tutorial, and it's here in a PDF and a Word document. In order to work along with me, you will also need this Helena resources map example, and this is the map that is in the tutorial and that I will be going through and recreating right now live. We've also included a resources spreadsheet template, and this is for you. This is a spreadsheet template that would be really useful for you if you want to create your own map for your own community. And it is already set up and structured so that it could be easily brought into the Google My Maps program. Google My Maps is free if you just need a Google account to access it. And it is fairly user-friendly, which is why we are using it and have used it for this program. I do want to make a quick note on accessibility as we get going. So I'm going back here to the Google My Maps landing page. Google My Maps are relatively accessible. However, like any map, it is a very visual medium. And in order to ensure that all of your resources are accessible to everyone who may want to work and access them, it's also really important that you keep your resources in a table format so that folks can use those if they're using screen readers, as Google My Maps isn't really the most accessible, is what I will say. So it's always important to have multiple formats of your resource list. And that's something I think that we can talk about at the end too, strategies and who the map may be for and how you may want to use this map. All right, maybe I'll pause really quick before I get going. If there are any questions or concerns or comments from the audience before I actually start mapping. I'm gonna assume that means no, but please interrupt me. I don't mind that at all. So I'm now hopefully you all have had time, if you want to work alongside, to download and open up the Creating a Resource Map with Google My Maps. I will be referring to it on my other screen, so that's, if you are looking at my face, I will be looking over there sometimes. The very first step will be to get started with My Maps, and I believe after you click on Get Started, if you are not already automatically logged into a Google account, it will prompt you to do so. So the very first step in this tutorial is to go to Google My Maps and click on Create a New Map. And you'll see here on my homepage, I have quite a few maps, many for this project that we are working on with communities and centers for independent living across the country, but some other maps that are just for my own local organizing as well as local fun, such as the river and camping map that you may see. So if you click on Create a New Map, it will take you to a blank-ish map. What we see is a map of the United States, a Google map of the United States. And in the top left corner, there is a section called Untitled Map, and has some sections called Untitled Layers. And this is where we are going to add our information to the map to start mapping. So the very first step will be to click on Untitled Map and name this map. So I'm going to name it Helena Resources April Tutorial, because I already have a Helena Resources in here. And you can also add a little description, tutorial or April presentation. I'm not going to try to avoid typing too much the rest of this. I want to say that I've chosen Helena, Montana as the location because that is my hometown, and wanted to do resources for Helena for this tutorial. So once you've not titled your map, and you can always go back in and edit, no problem. Edit the descriptions. You don't have to add a description right away at all. And I think you always want to be sure to save at every point that it prompts you to save. And now we are going to bring in our resource list. So to do that, we'll start with layers. You bring in information into a map in what are called layers. And layers are just different information that you want to display on your map. And there are multiple ways to create this map. You can use one layer like we will be doing in this tutorial. You can also bring in multiple layers. For example, multiple layers based on the type of resource classifications that you want on your map. And we have another tutorial in the works to highlight how to do that. And again, I am available for technical assistance on this. And we also, at the very end, will have information about opportunities for you to participate in this project with us and create your own map and connect with partners in your community. So I clicked on Untitled Layer, which prompts me to name the layer. I'm going to call it Helena Resources and click Save. And then we're going to import our data. And this is the data. I'll click on import. It's going to bring up a dialog box and have me select a file from my computer. And this is where you would bring in the file that's available on the April Resources, our April presentation page, where we'll browse to that Helena Resources Excel sheet. And so here, Helena Resources map example. I click on that, it will upload that, and it will prompt me, it will ask me, what is the column? So maybe I can open that up really quick and show you what it looks like. So here is the resource sheet. The columns are structured with names, and the template that you can also download from the presentation page has this is structured just like this, just with no resource content in here. It's important when you bring in your resources that you have your columns set up in the way that you are interested in displaying some information, because this will kind of provide the structure for the content in your map. So we want all of this information potentially to display. So we have a resource name, and then we have the address of the resource, and then some additional content. what this dialog box, I'm now back, sorry, we were just looking at the resource Excel sheet, and we are back now to the uh, um, mapping software, I guess, from Google page. And there is a dialog box that says choose columns to position your place marks. And this is saying, what should we use from what you just uploaded? Where is the information that tells Google where this is located? And that would be the address. So Google is smart, right? And knows, and Google Maps has all of the addresses of pretty much everywhere in it. And so by putting an address in your resource sheet, you can then place that address on the map. So I am going to select address and then continue. And then it will ask, choose a column to title your markers. And our markers, again, are our little place marks where it's going to put a little pin to show where that resource is located. And we want to mark those by the name of the resource. So I will select the little radio button that says resource name. And as if by magic, Google zooms in to Helena, Montana, and puts every place that was in my resource sheet and every address that I have listed, it plops them down on the map in these little blue pinpoints all over. And you can kind of zoom in. I'm using my mouse here to zoom in and out and get a little bit of a vibe for what Helena looks like. All right, so now, basically now you've created a resource map, right? But is it very functional? What we have right now are just kind of a bunch of blue pins on a map. It's awesome that they're mapped, but does it give us any information? Not really. So we want to edit our pins and change how the information is displayed on our map. And this is where Google My Maps is great and super easy to use. You come over here and we will do all of this work where you see this paintbrush icon. You will click on that and it will ask, how do you want to group your places? So you can group them by in a variety of different ways. You can group them as individuals. So if I click on individual styles here, you'll see that it will break them all out. We see all of the names of everything. But for this, because we've talked a little bit about those functional needs, in our resource template, we have a column that's called classification. And that allows you to identify or classify what group a resource may belong to. So is this a food security resource? Is this a housing resource? And we can map or group our points based on that resource classification. And so if you go down here, style by data column, here are all of the columns that are in that resource sheet. And again, the resource template that you can download has these, and you can put in your own resources. And I will go down here to classification. And then I can set the labels again as resource names so that those could be the name of the individual resource, or you can choose any of these other columns. And then I'm going to close it out by clicking on the little X. And here in the dialog box again, or our little legend on the left, we now have resources grouped in different colors by that classification, those functional needs that we talked about earlier in the presentation. And you'll notice that they are not all separate. We have lumped some together. So on the left, we have housing, technology, transportation lumped together. In parentheses next to it, you see that there are 4 resources within that group: community engagement, education, employment, financial and legal, food security, health, social services and supports, and disability services and supports. And you are free to mess with those classifications and classify resources however makes the most sense for you and your community. But it's really helpful to have some sort of classification scheme to kind of parse through the resources that are available. Okay, I went ahead in my tutorial, so yeah, please.
Lily, we do have a couple of questions coming in.
Great.
Yeah, so John asked, can an app developer attach this to their app? We are trying to work with an app developer here in Wyoming called We Love Wyoming. I think this might work for what we're trying to do.
I think it would work. I am absolutely sure that you can embed the resulting map, and at the very end, I think we'll have plenty of time to get there. I can show you how you can embed this on a Facebook page or your website or share out to others. And honestly, there are some limitations to doing it in this really free, easy way. And I think if you work with an app developer, they actually will be able to make it a lot better and make it a lot I would highly encourage, if that's an opportunity you have and this feels like something that would be useful, talk to the developer about it. And they are most certainly, I bet, familiar with what I think is the Google API. Don't actually know what API stands for, but I know that it's something that developers use. It is not my background. I am not a developer or a coder. I am a geographer, so I love to make maps. And I love this tool because you don't have to be a developer or even a geographer to use this. So I think I encourage you to do that. Yes. Before I go too on, I feel like there's another question.
Yes, thank you so much, Lily. Alex, I just want to read his comment, said, this is amazing, so much more than I knew this platform could do. And you had lots of hearts and clapping hand emojis when the resource map was first put on the screen. And then Chris asks, is there a way to get rid of the other locational information like the hotels and fairgrounds, etc.?
Yes, you are. I'm going to ask if was that Chris? Just hold your horses for 1 minute because that's our next step. So is that it, Dan? Can I keep going? I think we'll start to answer some of these questions as we get through.
Yep.
And again, all of this is available step by step with screenshot images in that tutorial that you can download. And I'm available for technical assistance as well. So I just want to return really quick and highlight a couple things that you can then do. If you click on this small arrow drop down next to the paintbrush, it will expand your list so then you can actually see the names of the resources that are within each classification. And then you have the ability to go in and change the style of these pin points by clicking on a little paint can icon to the right of the classification name. And that will bring up another little dialog box where you can change a color. So I'll change housing, technology, transportation to orange. And then you also can go and select icons. And here it will bring up some popular ones for you to choose from. There's a house and a knife and spoon and a little martini glass that are kind of common icons used in maps. So for housing, I will choose this house. And then let's go down here to financial and legal, for example. I will click on the paint can and we'll make this green for money. And then if you have the option of seeing more icons down below those popular icons that are listed, and it will bring up this dialog box with a bunch of different icons. They don't always work for what you want, but there are a lot of options and you kind of can be creative and are forced, honestly, to be kind of creative. However, for financial and legal, I believe there is a money icon in here somewhere. There's a ton of little icons. No matter how many times I make these maps, I never know where they are and I spend forever staring at them to try to figure it out. So I'm sure everyone here, well, look at, there's an alien, for example, and a ghost and a monster / dinosaur. Very useful for our community resources, I am sure. Oh man. Bear with me while I do this in front of everyone. There it is, $, and then select OK. All right, and I'm not going to go through and change all of these, but you can look over here on the map and you'll see a couple of these icons that are actually in the map have shifted. So here's a circle with a $sign for Montana Legal Services, the Office of Public Assistance, and some other housing and transportation resources as well. All right, and I think the next section, yes, so now we're getting into the question that was just asked. I'm going to collapse that so we have a little bit more to work with, and collapsing the classification things. Chris, I believe, asked about changing the base map. And so the base map is the underlying map that is kind of beneath our place marks. And that is just a standard, it's kind of Google's standard map. Like when you use the app on your phone or on the computer, this tends to be the map that you see. And it already has quite a bit of information on it. So there's a hospital here, there's some restaurants, the fairgrounds, for example. And honestly, this is actually not a bad way to start identifying what resources you may want to map, because Google has already done some of that for you. But if you want to pull those off, you can come down here and in your little layer dialog box up on the left, you click on base map and you can drop down and it will give you 9 different options for what that base map can look like. And this is where I actually think if you are working with a developer, you have a lot more opportunity to control what you see underneath. Here we are kind of limited to these 9 options. But there's a lot of good there are a lot of good and useful options in my opinion. You can look at satellite imagery. You can look at kind of just like terrain and see topography. You can see then that there's a lot of mountains around Helena. What I tend to default to is this Mono City, which is really simple. So I've selected Mono City and it has removed almost all of the underlying text content about different resources. It's in a kind of grayish, pinkish tone that just shows street outlines, and there's a couple interstates and maybe some parks, and has some additional content in there, but it really highlights your resources on the map. I think a couple other good ones. There's a political one. Oh, weird. I just clicked on the political one and it says we have no imagery, which is confusing. So I'm just going to go back to Mono City and not worry about that. So that's how you can change the base map and remove some of that underlying information. So
And
now,
Lily,
yeah.
I just want to read a couple of comments.
Please.
People saying this is great information. Thank you. Very useful. And Chris says much more intuitive than GIS.
Yes, it is. This is the way, as much as Google is like a giant corporation and I can monopoly in some ways, and I feel frustrated by that and I want things to be open source. This tool in particular is quite usable, right, and accessible to people who are not trained in any sort of standard, in any sort of mapping. So mapping can seem like something, I think, you know, like people like maps, but they think, how could you, I could never do that. And that's not true. And we're hoping that we can bring mapping to everyone through this tutorial. So honestly, we could go through and we could change all of these icons now that I've shown you how. But I'm going to just say, like, this map is pretty good, right? It's looking, all of our resources are on here. I want us to go in and this, I'm trying to look ahead in my tutorial really quick to just make sure. Okay, yeah, I know what. So now this is what the screen we see here with this layer box on the left and all of the things mapped on the screen are what you see if you're making the map. It's not what people will see if they're viewing the map. So that's what we get to do now is we come up here to this top these top icons and we can select preview. So there's add layer, share, and preview. And preview has a little eyeball icon. And we'll select preview and it will open up a new tab and it will show you what your map will look like to anyone who you share the link with, right? They won't be able to go in and edit, only you can with your Google account, which is why I would recommend maybe an organizational Google account. If you might have multiple people who would want to go in and edit the map, that would be a good strategy to kind of make sure that if someone leaves and it was their Google account, you still have access to your map. Folks who are viewing it can also, again, there's this little arrow next to these classifications. You can drop down, see what is available. And individuals can also then select a certain resource. So here I selected Montana Wild, which is a resource in Helena that does animal rehabilitation and also provides community education events and services and is a really exciting community engagement opportunity for folks. When you click on Montana Wild, it brings up the content that is in your resource sheet. So here we have the name, the address, phone number, and a link to a website. You can also, here you can drag, you can kind of use your mouse to drag around. You can also select things from the map, little icons. So if I click on here, the icon for Montana Independent Living program, that is the CIL in Helena, I'll click on that and the same information will come up. And here, let me try to do one more. This has not, we'll do Helena Library. I have one, I think, where we have hours of operation. Here, Helena Food Share. I clicked on Helena Food Share and what you'll see in here is that there's the name on the left, this information comes up, a website, description, and then there's also hours of information, some hours of operation, some additional information. Whatever you have in your resource sheet will go in there. And this is just, my resource sheet was a little incomplete, so I didn't have all of this information for all of those resources. And so since we are here, we want to go in and say, oh, well, maybe I want to add information to one of these resources to flesh out that a little bit more. We can go into edit, or since I'm just previewing, I can come up here and I can close this tab and it will bring me back to my editable map. And you'll see back here, you have control again to go in and change the content. Let's see, where am I in my thing? So let's go into, we can click, when we are in this edit, in our kind of editing space, we can click on any one of these and it will bring a little dialog box right above it. I do not want to click on job service, but what you'll see is that it'll bring up the content that is in your resource sheet. And what's really nice is that if even some of these areas are blank, I will zoom in. So here I'm on Montana Independent Living Project. Even though I did not have content filled in my sheet for this resource, I can come in and edit within here. So to do that, you again go to the paint can icon at the bottom. That's going to be kind of your general, oh wait, no, sorry. Oh my gosh, I did that wrong. Excuse me. Ooh, look it, you can add images and videos. See, look it, and learn new things. I want to edit this and I don't know why it's not letting. Oh, sorry. So paint can icon will help you, will allow you to change the color and those kind of that color and icon. Pencil is what will allow you to edit. So click on the pencil, and I have this correctly in my tutorial. I'm just a little flustered. So here, when you click on the pencil, it will make all of these different columns editable. So you can add and change and update information as things change or update. So I will put this in here as a Center for Independent Living. And then you can also decide that you don't want to display certain information by checking or unchecking the boxes by these column headers. So I'm going to say, well, this subclassification and classification was really for me. I don't really need that to be information on the map. So I'll turn that off. Click Save. And then when you go in and open it, you'll see now there's Center for Independent Living. You don't display any of that. And if we go into preview again, sorry if I'm getting a little ahead of myself, when you click on Montana Independent Living, you will now see an updated description and you will not see the classification system displayed. That classification system is still there and it's used to classify your points, but it doesn't mean that anyone else necessarily needs to see it.
Lily, can I jump in with a couple comments and a question?
Yeah, and actually, I kind of think I'm mostly done, but
Okay.
yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna
Great.
zoom out a little, and yeah, let's open it up to explore.
Deanne just shared that she loves mapping with Google. Your presentation is showing what I haven't yet discovered. I need this for personal resources, but can definitely see the advantage for SILs. Excitement about not knowing this was available. And then Barbara has a question. Where was the part where you could add images and videos?
Yeah, good.
I blinked and missed it.
Yes, let's look at that. Let's explore that for a minute together because I did not intend to click on that, but I did. And that is a really exciting option. So I suspect it's here. Yeah, so on down, if you click on, you can again click on the point, or you can click on the resource from your drop-down menu on the left. And then at the bottom, there's the options to edit the icon and the style, edit the content that's displayed, and then also add an image or video. So I'll click on that and it's going to allow you to drag and drop an image here. And let's just try it together. Let's see what random images I have on my desktop. Here, a logo for another project. Nice. So I will save that here. So this is the Home Usability Network. We didn't present on this year at April, but I encourage folks to Google it and check it out. And it's another fun project. So I'll save that. And now let's go. And Intermountain is, I have it down here as a health resource, but it is also a housing resource. It's a behavioral health resource, I think. And it will, this is kind of the thing I want to emphasize, that it can get kind of tricky when you have resources that provide multiple services within your classification scheme. So I just want to leave that up to everyone. You know, this is your map. You get to do it how you want. This is a way we've found to be useful, but it can get a little limiting if you have to kind of shove everything into a classification. But you can also list resources multiple times, and so that they will show up. They will not show up necessarily multiple times on the map, but you will have you can have something under housing as well as under health if you have it multiple times in your resource list. And in addition, this is when it is sometimes helpful and nice to do different layers that represent different classifications. And maybe if we have time, I can give an example. I can highlight a map that has additional layers with where you can kind of turn on and off different resource layers, because you may have a lot of resources available in your community. Okay, so I kind of got distracted there, but let's go to Intermountain. And look, it brings up a little logo. So this actually, I want to say this could be a really exciting opportunity when you are partnering if you want to partner with other organizations in your community to build relationships and say, like, we're creating this map, but you could get their logo, their information. It's another way for them to get their information out into the world, which is an incentive for them to kind of learn about you. And it's a good advertising opportunity for your center as well, to kind of own the map, but have it be a collaborative process where individuals get to get control over the content and information that they share. And that really is how we've used this in the past. Is we've found that it's so far been the most useful as a tool to bring partners together, to start looking at and understanding what is available in your community, and also to get your Center for Independent Living out there into the world. So we use it a lot in our rural communities, outlying counties, to identify resources and to kind of market yourself and say, hey, we're here and we're in this county, and we want to, engage in that way.
Lily, a couple of affirmations to what you're saying. Marilyn, this is a resource that we need to do for each one of our SIL counties. Maria shares that Lily and Jenna are helping me work with one of our counties in our catchment area. We are planning on embedding the map into our SIL website. The most time-consuming part is updating contact information with your partner organizations. And then we do have a question here. Barbara says she just graduated with her degree in instructional design, and she can see a lot of good uses for this in e-learning. Deanne asked specifically, do you map county by county or regionally, statewide, or SIL service area? And can you combine boundary areas?
Okay, that's really good. So I'm moving now. I'm going to switch up. And Jenna, I'm going to just ask you to prompt me when we have only 5 minutes left to get back to our PowerPoint slide. But this is prompting me to get back to my main mapping page so we can look at some other maps that we've done. And let me see which one I kind of want to highlight. This was one. Oh, I think it's going to be in shared. Maybe not. Here, let me go to, I have one here in Arizona that has 2 counties. And I've been able to, this is a little trickier to do multiple counties. Just to bring in the county boundaries can sometimes be a little technical, but that is actually something that I would be really happy to help facilitate. And I can get you the file, that you need, that you just can drag and drop into your map. And you can also draw county boundaries. If you're in Arizona, that's not so hard because it's lots of straight lines. In many other places, county boundaries are not straight lines. That can get a little tricky. You could do this regionally as well. I think that this map can actually be as big as you want it to be. I think the limitation that you have is, so here I want to just talk about this map really quick. We have 2 layers, and each layer represents a different county. And then it's structured the way that we set up the one we just went over. I might go back to show, let's do this. Yeah, so here's another map. This is in Columbus County, North Carolina, one of the very first centers that we worked with, the Disability Resource Center. based in Wilmington, and our map, so Wilmington is here, and our map was for a rural county that they serve. And we brought in, because there are quite a few resources, we brought in different layers for each kind of classification. And then you're allowed to, within each layer, kind of do sub classifications. And that's where you'll see in the resource list that there's a place where you can provide a sub classification, and that will allow you to kind of break out your resource list. It does get a little more complicated when you do this, and Google Maps limits you to 10 layers. So you can only have 10 classification options, including the county boundaries. So you can actually only have 9 if you want to do that. And so that is a little limiting. Again, for the person working with a developer, I think that's something that they can overcome and can do all sorts of things. So you are kind of limited. An additional limitation that I want to mention, and then I'll pause for some more comments, is if you want to make a change to the map, and you also need to change it in your resource sheet, so that you always have an updated resource sheet and an updated map that match each other. That's for accessibility, so that someone cannot access this map can access the resource lists and that they're up to date. I think if you work with a developer, they can do a thing where, like, you change the Excel sheet and it changes your map. That's what I want this to do, but it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And so, as Maria mentioned, making the thing that is the most challenging over time with any resource list, with any resource tool, is ensuring that it's updated. And it's really important that at your center, if this is something you want to do, that you have policies and procedures and plans for sustaining the map over time, which is why this tool is really nice, because it is usable, and a lot of people can do this. So you won't be dependent on, say, a GIS person or someone with a lot of technical skills to make the map. And that's something that we're trying to, with this project, the tutorial and this project, is understand how can this be a tool that kind of lasts into the future. Although, as a standalone one-time thing, it's also really great for building community relationships. So it can kind of serve multiple functions.
Lily, Diane here. Jamie sharing with everyone. If you didn't know, you can also report changes to Google. If you know of an error in mapping, address, or business info, you can edit it on Google Maps and then report changes to Google. And then Max made a suggestion and dropped a link in the chat for everyone to look at openstreetmap.org. And just so you know, we are at the 7-minute mark for the session.
Great. So I just want to highlight one more thing on the map, and then I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint with our contact information about how you could work with us in this project, or just contact me about any technical assistance you may have in making the map. Something that is really neat is, because this is connected to all of Google, you can add, you can search and add things to your map in Google. So I'm going to try to think of a resource that I don't have in here that is I don't know, I'm blanking. So I'm just going to put my elementary school in here because that's what's coming to my head. So it immediately brought it up. I click on it. It brings up information. And what it does is it has this information from Google. If you click on that little, it's like a green, it's always green. And I can do add to map. And what's really awesome is that once you add it to your map, it actually brings in all of those categories from your Excel sheet. Again, a reason why, even if you just start with one resource in that Excel sheet, you can add more this way. And then you can go in and edit and add more information about that resource. You can also then download your resources from the map, although I don't want to go into that right now, and I'm not sure that it's the greatest. So, but I think technically you could make your map in Google Maps and then export it and then clean up a resource sheet that way. But I think the best practice is probably to, if you add something to the map, to also add it to your standard resource table. So I'm going to stop sharing. Here's our, I'll kind of go back. Here's the map that we made today all together. Pretty easy peasy. And again, step-by-step instructions in that PDF. Oh, I'm going to share again to go back to the PowerPoint. All right. So I want to wrap us up here with just a little bit of information about how to, what the project entails. If you do want to participate and work with Jenna and I on this community mapping project, you'll meet with us for a little bit and kind of work individually with whatever works with your schedule. You'll spend some hours working in your community, identifying resources, working with us to build a resource sheet, and working to bring community partners together around the map. As part of the project, you'll learn about community resources that are available maybe in your rural. This is specifically focusing on your rural service areas. Probably important to highlight that. What you'll learn also is you'll get some more information. We have some different kind of a little more technical mapping tools that we use to get data and statistics about your community service area, about your CIL service areas. But you'll come away with a neat little report with a map and some data and statistics and some new, hopefully new relationships in your rural communities that you can use to continue to grow your relationships. Again, I want to say that this is being recorded. So what we'll hopefully do is share at what point too, you can come back, revisit at any point to revisit the tutorial, go along step by step. The materials are all there. You can reach out to me, lily.greiman@umontana.edu. It's LILLIE.GREIMAN at umontana.edu. And a funding statement that this is supported by NIDLR and doesn't represent the views of the federal government, just our own. I think that's it. There really are just all sorts of possibilities with a tool like this, and something that did come to my mind when I was at the emergency planning presentation yesterday. This is an excellent potential tool to start some of those relationships with your local emergency managers and other community partners. And this could be a great tool to develop to connect consumers with resources that they may need in an emergency. You could put shelters that your county has designated on the map. It's pretty easy to add and update. So in those situations, this could be a really great possible tool. And I know we're almost out of time, and there might be a couple more comments. Jenna, I want to let you say anything if you have any final words or.
Thanks, Lily. Yeah, I just wanted to echo that we're here for you to reach out to us if you are trying it on your own and need help, or if you would like to partner with us, and we'd love to go through that process. There were a couple of questions, Lily. One was if the meetings are online or in person, and those are online. So we're conducting them via Zoom right now. Also, does it cost to get involved? And
No,
not at all.
Not at all. Please reach out if you want. I guess it costs your time. It will cost you the time to meet with us a little bit and put some energy into really building out your resource list and making those community relationships. But that's it.
Yeah.
We hope that it kind of falls in line with a lot of the work you're already doing or trying to do, particularly for anyone who's in a community outreach role or as an outreach specialist or anything like that.
And it can also be a really great project if you have an intern or a student working with
Yes.
you. We've had
Mhm.
several on some of the SILs we've been able to partner with, and it's been a really great project for them as well as for the SIL overall, because you have this amazing resource that can be used. So just something to think about.
Great project for something like that, because there is an actual thing. There's like an end goal. They create a product and then you can kind of move on. And again, you want to think about strategies for maintaining the map into the future. But we can help think about that too. And hopefully next year at April, we'll have a presentation about the best practices for managing and maintaining resources and relationships, perhaps.
Wonderful. Lily and Jenna, thank you so much. And thanks to all of the attendees for joining today's session. Please don't forget to take time at the end of this session to complete the short eval to let us know how we can continue to improve on our topics for future conferences. And I just want to put a reminder out there that all materials and recordings will be posted on the conference website if you want to go back to reference or obtain contact information. And we hope to see everyone back in 30 minutes for our closing ceremony. It's hard to believe. And again, thank you so much, Jenna and Lily, for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. This was great.